Think about slipping into complete darkness. Water temperature is just above freezing, and the pressure is so great it could squish a car into a soda can. Then, out of the darkness comes a terrifying face, teeth jagged and crooked, a glow of sorts trailing from its head like a macabre lantern, eyes that seem too large for its face. This is no monster from a sci-fi horror movie. This is an anglerfish. Believe it. Welcome to the deep sea, where evolution has created some of the strangest, almost alien-like organisms alive today. Today, we're going to take a journey to investigate one of the many fascinating questions about the deep sea. Why do deep-sea creatures look so weird? But before we dig deeper into our subject, let's take a minute to define what we mean by deep sea. According to scientists, the deep sea refers to anything below 200 meters or 656 feet. That doesn't sound so deep, does it? But here's the astonishing part. The deep sea makes up 65% of our planet's surface area. And despite all our technological prowess, despite the fact that we've sent rovers to Mars and exploratory missions beyond our solar system, we've only explored 20% of our ocean depths. Take a minute to think about that. We know more about the surface of the moon than our ocean floors. The deep sea is further divided into various regions, each one more extreme than the last. Then there is the twilight zone, which extends from 200 to 1,000 meters. Here, the sun's light starts to diminish. Next comes the midnight zone, which extends from 1,000 to 4,000 meters. Here, the sun's light is completely absent. Below this is the abyssal zone, and beyond that is the hodl zone, which is found in the ocean trenches and extends beyond 11,000 meters. Here's what you have to understand. There's nothing random about the look of deep-sea creatures. Every weird thing, every weird adaptation, every weird alien-looking thing has only one purpose: survival. These creatures aren't weird, they're smart. In order to understand the nature of the deep-sea organisms, we need to understand the nature of the environment they inhabit, which is quite hostile. Let's talk about pressure. At sea level, you have 1 atmosphere of pressure. With every 10 meters you go down into the water, you gain another atmosphere of pressure, which means that at 1,000 meters, you have 100 atmospheres of pressure. At the lowest point of the ocean, at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, you have well over 1,000 atmospheres of pressure. That's over 15,000 pounds per square inch, which will crush any submarine like tinfoil. But how, you ask? Do deep-sea creatures withstand such pressure? This is the best part. Many deep-sea creatures have soft, gelatinous tissues with little to no air in them. Because water is incompressible and the creature is largely composed of water, the pressure inside the creature is the same as the pressure outside. No crushing necessary. This is why many deep-sea fish seem so soft and squishy compared to their shallow water relatives, whose skeletons and swim bladders are rigid. Then there's the darkness. Past the 1,000-meter mark, there's not a glimmer of sunlight to be had. None whatsoever. It's not just dark, it's black as coal all the time, every time of the year. Think about trying to locate food, predators, and even a mate in such conditions. It's because of this one aspect that some of the most extreme adaptations occur in the deep sea, altering the way in which these organisms perceive their world, or don't perceive it at all. Another factor is temperature. The temperature in the deep ocean is just a few degrees above freezing, usually between 2 and 4 degrees centigrade. The low temperature makes the animal's metabolism sluggish. The animal's budget would make a miser envious. Every action, every move has to pay off in terms of calories. Perhaps the most characteristic aspect of the deep sea, however, is the lack of food. Without sunlight, there cannot be any plants. Without plants, there cannot be any base of the food chain. The only energy sources are marine snow, tiny particles of dead material drifting down from the surface, and the occasional bonanza of a whale carcass sinking to the bottom. Meals are rare and unpredictable. When you might not eat for weeks or even months, your body has to adapt accordingly. In an environment where there is complete darkness, the ability to produce light has been developed by some deep-sea animals as an adaptation to their environment. This ability to produce light is known as bioluminescence, and it occurs when living organisms produce and emit light. It is extremely common in the deep-sea environment because up to 90% of the animals that live there can produce light. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the fascinating ability to see in the dark. Bioluminescence is a complex process with several purposes. One such example is the way predators lure prey using bioluminescent bait. Many predators, such as the infamous anglerfish, have this bait to lure their prey. The bait, commonly known as the esca, found in front of the anglerfish's mouth, is actually filled with bioluminescent bacteria. Other fish are drawn to these. Some animals resort to bioluminescence in order to communicate or locate mates. The vampire squid, despite its ominous-sounding common name, is quite harmless. The squid has the ability to create a spectacular light show by expelling bioluminescent mucus that distracts its predators while it swims away into the darkness. And then, of course, there is the ability of some creatures to be camouflaged through counter-illumination. This is where the hatchetfish has light-producing organs in its underside that match the weak light emitted from above. This way, when predators peer up at the fish from beneath, the fish is completely hidden against the lighter water above. It is almost like active camouflage. The chemical reaction that makes bioluminescence possible is the reaction between a light-producing molecule named luciferin and oxygen, catalyzed by the enzyme luciferase. The effect? Cold light that produces very little heat, much more efficient than any light bulb that has ever been invented. If food is scarce and you never know when the next meal is coming, the strategy becomes simple. Eat what you can, when you can, and as much as you can. This has resulted in some of the most amazing adaptations. Take the gulper eel, also known as the pelican eel. This fish has a mouth that is staggeringly large compared to its size. Its jaw can also dislocate so that it has a massive pouch that allows it to swallow an animal that is far larger than its size would normally suggest. Just think of being able to dislocate your jaw and swallowing a couch. This is roughly the equivalent size. Even more remarkable, though, is the black swallower. This species of fish, which grows no bigger than 10 inches long, has been discovered with prey in its stomach that was twice as long as the fish itself. Its stomach can get so big that the fish resembles a balloon with fins. There are recorded instances of the black swallower dying because its stomach burst due to the size of its meal before it had a chance to digest it. Eyes bigger than its stomach, indeed. These are just the kinds of things that make total sense when you look at the economics of the deep sea. If you're facing the possibility of not eating for months, you'd better take every opportunity you can get. A fish that only eats things smaller than itself would be the equivalent of a human who only eats things smaller than itself, which would put them at a tremendous disadvantage. But a fish that could eat anything they come across, no matter the size, that's just a survivor. Many deep-sea organisms have an almost ghost-like appearance, with bodies that are either translucent or semi-transparent, blending with the water around them. Why, though, would you have to be translucent in an area where it's pitch black? First of all, the darkness is not as black as we think. Because there are so many organisms that are bioluminescent, there are sparks and glows throughout the water. This transparency helps to keep me from creating a shadow or silhouette when the light of another organism passes by. But there is another benefit of being a deep-sea creature. This is energy efficiency. It is very expensive to build and maintain a dense, muscular, and bony body. If you have limited food sources available, why spend energy on things you do not need? A gelatinous body is much easier to maintain. The barrel-eye fish carries this to an extreme degree. The barrel-eye fish has a head that is transparent, like a cockpit on a fighter plane, with a dome that reveals the tube-like eyes inside. This enables the fish to peer upwards through its forehead to detect the silhouette of prey illuminated by the faint glow above. Glass squids are another example of this, as they are transparent enough to see their organs. Jellyfish have taken this to an art as they move through the water as invisible predators. When you are essentially water in a water world, it makes it very hard to be noticed. The connection that deep-sea animals have with light has yielded the most bizarre eyes in the animal kingdom, and that's putting it mildly. On one side of the spectrum, there are animals with eyes that are simply gigantic. Take, for example, the giant squid, one of the most elusive animals in the ocean, whose eyes are as large as dinner plates. This makes their eyes the largest in the animal kingdom. Why would an animal need such large eyes, you ask? Well, in an environment with little light, you need to be able to harness every single photon you can get. Such huge eyes are highly sensitive, allowing them to detect the slightest bioluminescent flash from a distance of hundreds of feet. They can even notice the slightest disturbance in the bioluminescent planktons formed by the movement of a whale. Then, on the other side of the spectrum, there are many examples of deep-sea animals that do not have eyes at all. When there is literally no light to see, eyes become an expensive luxury. You use energy to build and maintain the eyes, and you create a target area on your body. There are species of shrimp and fish that are blind and use other senses, like the sense of smell and the sense of vibration, to navigate their environment. There also exists the weird fish, like the barrel eye fish we talked about earlier, where the eyes are tubular and fixed, pointed upwards, so the fish always looks upwards. The idea is to maximize the catching of light from above and still be horizontal in water. Finding a mate is difficult enough on land. Now imagine finding someone compatible with you in the black darkness of the ocean depths, with perhaps only a few individuals per cubic kilometer of population density. The answer? Some of the most unusual mating behaviors on the planet. The most common example of this is that of the anglerfish. Many varieties of anglerfish have males that are greatly smaller than the female. When a male finds a female, he not only copulates with her, he also permanently attaches to her body. His blood vessels join hers, and he becomes a sort of parasite attached to her side, producing sperm as needed. Gradually, he loses his eyes, his fins, and his organs, being left as a sort of bump that produces sperm. From a biological point of view, this is perfectly understandable. In the vast darkness, once you've found a mate, you never want to lose them. The male makes sure that he will never be alone again, and the female has a guaranteed source of fertilization without having to go searching for the males in the dark. This is because the pressures of evolution for the male and the female differ in the deep sea. The female has to be large so as to produce as many eggs as possible, and also has to possess sufficient energy reserves to enable her to survive for a considerable time without eating. The male only has to find a female and then be able to survive for a sufficient time to reproduce. Neither of these will be helped by the male being large, so he has evolved to be as small as possible. Here's the guiding thread that ties all of this together. These beings aren't odd or alien. They're perfect. Every characteristic we have discussed here, the luminescent lighting, the massive jaws, the transparent bodies, the weird eyes, the bizarre manners of reproduction. These are the results of millions of generations of natural selection, solving concrete, real-world problems. They're not monsters. They're manifestations of adaptation. Now consider what it would take for us to survive down there. A sturdy, pressurized capsule of protection, constant artificial illumination, a steady stream of food and warmth, and with our tech, we're able to dip into the deep sea in short bursts. These creatures spend their entire lives there, perfectly tuned to that world. And there's the thrill of convergent evolution, how distant species end up crafting the same kinds of solutions to the same kinds of challenges. Lots of deep-sea residents have developed bioluminescence on their own. Many have grown big mouths and expandable stomachs independently. The deep sea's demands are so precise and so fierce that evolution keeps landing on the same answers again and again. Good news, we're on the cusp of a golden age of exploration in the deep ocean. New technology, remote-operated vehicles, autonomous underwater drones, better cameras, and smarter sensors, to name 2 areas, allows us to explore deeper and examine features we simply cannot imagine with the technology we have now. Estimates are that we are coming across 2,000 ocean species every year, and most are from deep in the ocean. Lately, we have encountered the Mariana snailfish, prospering at depths that would have been considered impossible for fish to survive. Then, there are whole ecosystems found near hydrothermal vents that run unaided by the sun, relying on the chemical energies of the planet. We have also recorded offbeat giants like the bigfin squid, whose tentacles are over 20 feet long. And the wrenching part is this: we only think we've begun to explore the deep. We turn back the tip of the iceberg. There seem to be millions of examples of deep-sea creatures that we've never even discovered. Surprise around every corner as we explore. Well, that was the end of the video. If you feel interested, please do not forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. See you in the next one.